Let's check out Audison's Voce Av 1.1 tweeters. I don't need to be an encyclopedia on these things, but they call this a neodymium wren tweeter with a Teton dome. So it's obviously a silk dome style tweeter, let's call it a textile dome tweeter. That's probably most relevant. Rated at 1 1/8 inch, which is 28 millimeters in science units, 4 ohms and 92 dB. So really quite sensitive, which is cool. Let's get into them. Now we get a manual for the entire Voce series, so that covers the whole range. It's really quite comprehensive, but that's because it's in every language and it covers every model. But as with anything, you get your listed accessories and you get full dimensions and some mounting suggestions too, which is nice of them. And you get a bunch of accessories, but first of all, let's get into a tweeter. Let's check that out. Look at that, what a beautiful tweeter. I'd sort of call it flashy and understated at the same time because it's nearly all black. It's got like a semi-rubberized finish on this bridge here. It's got a nice open metal grille, and I do like that in a tweeter that there's fairly little obstructing the path of the sound from this tweeter. It's got a fairly decently sized roll surround on that, which is cool. And it stays understated on the back here. We've got permanently attached sort of glued down wires, although they do protrude a little bit from the edge here, and the information of the speaker just there. So it's a really cool looking speaker. It's not vented or anything on the back, so in terms of mounting, you're fairly free to mount it wherever you'd like. It's not going to affect the performance of the tweeter, which is kind of cool. And of course, I've got an identical matching one here. Yeah, look at that. Really cool. They're an understated tweeter, but they've got some heft to them because they are neodymium motors. They've got a little bit of weight to them, which is great. And that obviously shows with the sensitivity that they've got some motor force behind them, which is nice. But just classy, understated, really cool. And I mean, look, they're tweeters, they've got flying leads attached. How long are the flying leads? Reasonably thin flying leads as well. I suppose that's not a big deal. They'd be 15 centimeters at the most, or 150 millimeters. So not awfully long flying leads, but I suppose sufficient for what most people want to do with them. And then with tweeters, I guess, you know, the flexibility they have in terms of mounting is going to be high on some people's lists. So, you know, they've got a lot of different accessories, and that's something you don't get with every set of tweeters or components. So you get tweeter bridges, which are handy for connecting in place of a larger tweedler, you know, wideband driver like you find in a lot of cars, for example, in dash locations. So to have those bridges, really handy for a lot of installs where you're going for an OEM style fitment. We've also got a pair of flush mount bezel rings, if you like. So the tweeters obviously press into these. Likewise, you can press them into these bezels. So they're quite a tight fit, and the glue on the wires does get in the way a little bit. But you can snap them in like that, and you've got a larger bezel then, which, you know, depending on if you're mounting them in a hole that you've cut, this actually gives you the flange you need so that the cut isn't visible. So that's a really good idea. Otherwise, you've only got a very small step on the tweeter itself. So again, quite nice that they've included accessories like that. They've also got steel snap-on rings, which obviously are designed to bite into the back of the tweeter. So if you're securing that with the mounting bezels, you can use this to retain them on the other side. And they've also got a few countersunk and non-countersunk screws because they also come with some angled mounting cups. So they're not actually drilled, which is a smart idea. They've got indents there for drilling, but they're not actually drilled, so that you can actually, you know, drill and mount them on the angle that is going to suit best, whether it's a mild angle like that or a sharper angle like that. So that's kind of cool. It's not a mounting option I use very often, but there are some circumstances where that works really nicely. And in fact, there's plenty of scenarios where, you know, compared to if you haven't got a tweeter location, or it's a crappy tweeter location, these aren't that ugly. The improvement in sound you get compared to mounting these in a crappy location. You know, so it's, like I say, it's not something I use very often, but it's not a bad idea. It's always nice to have these on standby. So that's pretty cool. So Audison's AV 1.1 tweeters, really nice and really versatile when it comes to mounting. Pretty cool. Let's check out the Audison Voce Av 3.0 mid-range driver. Pretty cool thing. These are rated at 93 dB efficiency, so like the tweeter, quite efficient, which is fantastic. It's certainly a theme of Audison's Voce range is efficiency as well as performance. And again, they call this a Wren cone, a bit like they did with the technology in the tweeter. Once again, you've got a user manual which covers the entire Voce range. And you've got some grills. Excellent. We'll look into them in a sec, because for now, I want to have a look at these drivers. Oh, lovely. These are beautiful. Let's have a closer look. Okay, so these drivers, just stunning. They've got a W sort of zigzag rubber surround like you'll find on the rest of the Audison cone drivers. Audison badge stuck onto the basket there is a nice little touch, and of course the inverted dust cap. They've got rebated mounting holes, which is cool. So we've got the outer ring, which the mid-range driver would mount through like that. And then we've got a grill bar that goes over it like that. So when you've got it like this, it's a very understated look. You know, you don't see that grey outer frame or anything. You've just got the Audison badge here and one pressed in there. And these are both in a rubberized finish like the bridge on the tweeter. So very cool. And then if you wanted extra protection, you've also got this mesh grill which presses in. So you've actually got a lot of options there to keep things inconspicuous and well protected. In fact, I wonder, you can probably even mount them like this and fit that grill over the top for another different look. So that's pretty cool. You got a lot of different ways for protecting these things, making them look good as well if you were to use grills. This is their silver cast frame basket, which is really cool. So it's really nice to see a cast alloy basket on a mid-range driver like this. We've got a substantial neodymium motor. You can actually see the thin slug itself as well as the pole piece. And again, a really nice backplate sticker there so you can tell what's going on. It's a 3-spoke basket with heaps of room for breathing. And that's the thing with a mid-range. You really do, you want a good motor structure and everything. You want a good spider for control, but you also need room for the speaker to breathe and work properly. So they've ticked that box there. They've got push-on terminals. They're actually the same size for positive and negative, so you've really just got to check the colour of the insulator there. So this basket allows for really good cooling as well. So we've got a pole piece vent here, as well as spider perimeter venting around here in the frame itself. So kind of cool cooling fins there. The coil itself doesn't have perimeter venting, but that's probably not necessary on a mid-range. The venting in the pole piece and the perimeter venting underneath the spider not only going to lead to really good cooling for the coil, but also allow for minimal back pressure so that that air back pressure is not constricting the driver at higher output. So that's really cool too. I'd say, you know, there's just a couple of tiny attention to detail bits on the casting that, you know, It's nice, but it's not perfect. But, you know, that's probably a bit of a stretch in terms of criticism. They really are a lovely mid-range driver. Get the other one out as well. A bit of a side-by-side look. Oh, yep, they're really strong motors. Really strong motors. Wow, that was a mistake. Anyway, so look, the good thing with a neodymium motor like this is that it gives you a lot of motor force, but it's not too bulky, and that can actually be relevant with a mid-range driver, which you might be mounting in a door or in an A-pillar like I'm going to be doing. So it's really nice to see a motor assembly that's powerful and refined, but not too bulky. That certainly has some relevance. But look, overall, these are just, again, beautifully crafted speakers, and they're gonna look and work really well. That's Audison's AV 3.0 mid-ranges.